What is going on, guys? So today I wanted to go ahead and take a little bit of time to talk to you guys about the new mutant archetype coming out of Phantom Rage. There's been a lot of talk about it. People, saying it's going to be, really good control-based deck, and I just really want to go ahead and talk to you guys a little bit more about some of the pros and cons that come with it, exactly what it's going to be good at, what it's going to be a little bit lacking in, what it reminds me of some previous decks that it reminds me of as well, and what it can be used for and what it might need in order to be more successful. So I want to go ahead and start off by saying that I'm not an expert by any means, but I do want to go ahead and make sure that people are aware of the issues if they're not already, and I also want to make people aware of how great some of the cards are if they aren't already as well. So the first things I'm going to tackle, let's go ahead and I'm going to tackle the pros. Right, a good pro of the deck is that it is a very small engine, meaning that we can incorporate other strategies into the deck. For example, I know Team Sam plays the Dragoons to go ahead and the Dragoon with the Deck Magician. In the deck, right? So you can go ahead and make Dragoon, which is obviously the best card in the game right now, or one of and that's something that can be it's flexible, right? It's very flexible and allows it to give it more interruption, right? Also the mutants themselves, the big boss monsters. What is it? The Mist, the Arsenal, and then the Beast. Right, they have their own interruption as well, which is really cool. And what I like about that is that they also protect themselves from your opponent's card effects. So it reminds me a lot of playing True Draco, right? So True Draco, was it a year, 2 years ago? Was one of the best decks, one of the best control decks. My favorite control deck I've ever played. But yeah, it feels a lot like playing Draco. It just with Draco, it seemed like it was a lot more consistency because there were so many more opportunities to search and to start off your I wouldn't not combos because it wasn't a combo deck, but it was just much more consistent, and that is one of the things that I want to, I guess, transfer to talking about the cons. Is that this deck seems a little bit inconsistent. It feels a little bit too in between the Monarch and the Draco scale, whereas both decks have very high ceilings as far as what they can do. Monarch being able to lock you out of extra completely, and Draco being to just outright will disrupt your play constantly. It seems like a middle ground, right? But it has one thing in common, which is that it tends to brick, right? Now the bricks in this deck aren't nearly as bad, right? Which is good. I mean, if you brick drawing some spells and traps and a dimension shifter, then I mean that's you still get a form of interruption, right? There's still forms you can go ahead and interrupt, but when you're using so many cards outside of the actual archetype, I don't feel like the archetype itself deserves the credit, It's like back when Trickstars were a thing, and Trickstar players play triple Scapegoat, and they make a Borolo dragon. Yeah, when they make a Borolo dragon using the Scapegoats, the Borolo dragon is a really good card, but it wasn't because of the Trickstar cards that it doesn't deserve the credit for it. It does the same thing. The Dimension Shifter is a good card, but I just don't think it deserves the credit. Now, the one thing I do love about this deck, going back to the pros, is that it's very innovative the way that it, kind of combines using your banished monsters, your graveyard monsters, your off-field monsters. So it really feels like you're using a lot of resources around you. The more you use, the more you continuously feed your own engine as well, which is super cool, and also it gives you the opportunity to fusion some of your opponent's turn, which even adds to the interruption, right? So those are things that I really enjoy about the deck as well. Now switching back to a little bit more the con side, is it tends to play a bit too slow for the current meta game. Current meta game is blazing fast. Things like Dinos, Inferno, Knight, those type of decks. We got Prank Kids are gonna be top tier after Phantom Rage, and it's just these decks play very very fast, and I in this deck the mutants going second, I just don't think it has the interruption to be able to combat that. Prankas especially can play through multiple hand traps and multiple interruptions, and they can still go ahead and do its thing. I just don't think mutants can keep up with that. Now, the mutants going first is amazing, especially when you draw your, there can only be ones, and your other interruptions. I like to play Solemn Judgment in any control deck, so I threw Solemn Judgments in my build. Don't judge me, but yeah, that's pretty much it for the second con, guys. I want to go back to the pros, revisit two final pros. The pro that about it is that it has a lot of potential, right? It has a lot of potential. I just really think it needs one more search card and really take off. Whether it's a spell, I really want it to be a spell to give it one more search. Another way to access your lower mutants. Your starter cards, another way that you can go ahead and get those guys out, and I think this deck's going to be a lot more viable, right? That's one thing that really is not too forbidding in the deck, is that it doesn't seem very viable in the grind game, right? So after your first or second turn of your monsters, there's really nothing else you can continue to do, right? Now, most, I guess, duels in Yu-Gi-Oh!, especially right now, are determined within the first 2 or 3 turns. But in the instances that it goes a little bit further, I don't see this deck having the fortitude to continue grinding out. Also, the only reason why I say that's an issue is because it doesn't have the consistency to have the interruptions enough to make an unbreakable board turn 1, or to make it so that you're so controlling you got your opponent like this. It doesn't have that fear, right? Like, if I'm going against mutants, I don't fear the deck, and it's something that I definitely, going up against Zodiac, yes, I fear that. Yes, I fear the deck. If you're going up against, like I said, old school True Draco, yes, you understand that these decks will do their thing, and they'll do it very very well, and they'll control the game and make you play at their pace. Mutants just doesn't seem to have that for me just yet. But I do love that in its current state that the deck is right now, before release and everything. I love that the deck is still considered to be very very controlled and is trying to slow down the meta. Whether it'll be successful, to be honest, I do not think so. I think there's just way too much firepower right now for the deck Mutant itself to be successful. Now, of course, you can go ahead and fill it with a whole bunch of the Dragoons and hand trap decks and a whole bunch of trap cards and call it Mutants. But the Mutant itself, I just think there's so many better ways you can play a control deck. Okay, there's better options, but that's just me currently right now. I could be wrong. This deck might completely destroy the Prank Case, might completely destroy the Guru control, whatever it might be, and it might take off as number 1. And that's the beauty of the game, is that there's no real way to predict it. I'm just saying my personal opinion. I'm not blown away by the deck, but I am intrigued by it. So I really hope it gets more support in the future. I definitely see where it's coming from and its potential, and I just wanted to go ahead and let you guys know some quick pros and cons, as I am trying to test out the deck right now and trying to see what I can do to make it a little bit better. I have, of course, gotten some inspiration from Team Sam, but I do want to play a more pure variant. It's just that cards like the Mutant Blast and the Mutant Clash just aren't main deck worthy enough. So I just think this deck needs a little bit of love, a little bit of support, and I think it'd be a great control deck as long as it continues going that route. And yeah, all it needs is either one more searcher or one more control card, and I think this deck could be really good. But as current state, I don't think so. So let me know what you guys think. Are Mutants going to be the next tier 1? If they are, fair game. But if they are, that's awesome. If you guys did enjoy, go ahead and leave a like, subscribe down below to receive a little bit more of the lowdown on what's gonna happen. I want to do more videos like this as well, where I just sit down and I just talk about what my personal opinions are. Now I'm wrong half the time, but you know what? Half the time I'm also right. So we'll see what happens. I'll see y'all in the next one. Later.